All right. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our formal session on February 19th at 10 a.m. I'm going to ask Kevin to lead us in the flag salute.
Flag, the United States of America, and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much for that. All right, that brings us to our calendar session. Is there any changes from the commissioners? None.
None.
None. Okay. Dia's public comment. If you have any general public comments, raise your virtual hand if you're online or fill out one of the tan cards. If you have any comments for the public hearing coming up, fill out the green sheets and then hand them to Bailey over here. With that, we'll get going with our public comment. And the first general and only general one that I have is James Goings. Come on up and name and address, please.
My name is James Goings. I live at 2126 Northwest Elm Street, McMinnville. Good morning, Chair Johnston and Mary Sterrett, Commissioner Sterrett and King. I'd been here last week, but I had surgery. I'm here today to address something that occurred on January 29th, 2026 at a commissioner board meeting that should concern everyone who values open and honest and public participation. Commissioner King, during your remarks, you publicly identified me by name and accused me of unethical behavior, specifically on revealing privileged information, while also implying that Commissioner Johnston had leaked information from executive session to me. Both of those accusations are false. All the information I referred in my testimony was already public, discussed openly in public meetings, and taken from public available sources at no time. Let me say that again, at no time did I receive privileged information from Commissioner Johnston or anyone else. Your statement were not only incorrect, they were slanderous. More importantly, this kind of accusation has a chilling effect on public participation. Constituents should never feel intimidated, threatened, or personally attacked for exercising the right to speak during a public comment. That behavior undermines the trust in this institution and discourages civil engagement. I'm asking you today to do the right thing. Public correct the record and apologize to me and to the public for making accusations that were unsupported and untrue. Public services require accountability, especially when your words are spoken from this bias. Ball's in your court, Commissioner King. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next is E. Is there anybody online with a general public comment? Raise your virtual hand. Seeing none. E is department updates. We have none. F is work session. There is none. G is the consent agenda. I would move approval. Is there any further discussion?
None.
None for me.
None. All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. H is old business. There's none. I is other business. I1 is consideration of approval of an intent to award the 2026 North Valley Road full depth repair FDR and culvert replacement project to Roy Hawks Construction LLC in the amount of $217,514.50. I would move approval. Is there any further discussion?
None.
None for me.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
I did very much appreciate the level of detail in the packet on this that
Yeah, great.
Mark provided.
Yeah, Mark,
Very,
and
very,
Greg
very good.
does
Field
very,
today,
very
Mark.
good
Well
job.
done.
Yep. Thank you for that. I2 is consideration of approval of an amendment to the agreement between Yamhill County Health and Human Services and Locum Tenens effective, board order number 15-269, effective April 2nd, 2026.
Chair, I move approval.
Motion's been made. Any further discussion?
None.
None?
None? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. I3 is consideration of approval of an intergovernmental agreement number 057247 between Yamhill County Health and Human Services and the Oregon Health Authority for PSRB tort liability coverage effective January 1, 2026 through June 30, 2027.
Move approval.
Motion's been made. Any further discussion?
None.
None? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. That brings us to our public hearing. So I'm going to open up this public hearing at 10:06. Welcome, Jody. Can you hear us all right?
Morning, Counselor.
Okay, good. Thank you. I'm going to call for any abstentions by members of the board. Any?
None for me.
None? Okay. I'm going to ask for if there's any parties that object to the jurisdiction of this board to hear the matter before it. Seeing none, hearing none. Does any board member need to announce and state on the record any substance of ex parte contact or site visits?
Chair, I have during the COVID lockdown attended services there when the governor shut the churches down. I have also received a communication from someone who is a congregant. I did not acknowledge it, but neither of these will impact my ability to be neutral.
Anything?
Just driven by it, up Chehalem.
Okay.
A lot, but the site.
I have none. So that leads us to the reading of the statements.
Oregon law requires that persons who attend a land use hearing be advised of certain rights and duties before the hearing begins. First, with regard to the standards for approval. State law ORS 197.797 requires that we list the applicable substantive criteria that must be met in order for the county to approve the application. The applicable standards will be listed by the county planner in a moment as part of the staff report. Testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed towards the standards for approval. Second, the raise it or waive it rule. Under Oregon law, any issue that might be raised in an appeal of the county's decision in this matter must be raised before the record of this hearing is closed. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision makers and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal to the board based on that issue. Third, and this is directed to the applicant, under ORS 197.796, failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to proposed conditions of approval, again with sufficient specificity to allow the county to respond to the issue, precludes an action for damages in circuit court. And finally, I will also note that under Oregon law, and because this is the initial evidentiary hearing on this matter, any participant, that is anyone who submits oral or written testimony during this hearing, may, before the record is closed, request an opportunity to present additional evidence, arguments, or testimony regarding the application. The request must be made prior to the time the chair announces that the hearing is closed. Mr. Chair.
Thank you for that.
The applicable review criteria and standards include sections 501.03N and 1202.02 of the Yamhill County zoning ordinance. Comprehensive plan policies may also be applicable. The applicant submitted a conditional use permit request for the construction and operation of a church facility on tax lot 3206-04900, which was approved by the planning director on October 17th, The director's approval was appealed on November 3rd. The church will have a congregation of approximately 220 people and will hold services on Sunday morning. The church would also host a smaller youth service on Wednesday evenings that would include approximately 50 attendees. The applicant anticipates 70 vehicles using the parking lot on a typical Sunday service and between 80 and 90 vehicles at special services. The Sunday service is planned to begin around 7:30 a.m. and is planned to wrap up around 11:30 a.m. The Wednesday evening youth services will begin around 6:30 p.m. and will typically be completed by 8:30 p.m. The subject lot itself measures approximately 7.7 acres and is located in the county's Agriculture and Forestry Small Holding District, the AF10 zone. There is a single-family dwelling and several accessory buildings located on the property. The applicant's request includes renovating 2 of the existing accessory buildings for church use. Past land use on the subject lot has included an automobile repair business along with some small-scale farm uses. The on-site dwelling is served by a driveway with direct access to Northeast Chehalem Drive, which runs along the western property line of the applicant's lot. There is a second access point located along the southern property line that provides access to the 2 larger accessory buildings that are planned to serve the church use and activities. Adjacent lots to the north, south, and east are also zoned AF10, and adjacent lots to the west are zoned for exclusive farm use. Land use for the lots in the AF10 zone is predominantly rural residential, with some exhibiting small or modest farm operations. The lots in the surrounding area zoned for exclusive farm use are generally larger than the lots located in the AF10 zone, and also tend to have larger and more prominent farm uses occurring. The most common farm uses evident in the surrounding area include hazelnut orchards, grass seed and hay fields, along with some livestock pasturage. And that concludes the staff report. Oh, before I finish, the applicant and appellant approached me before the hearing and noted that they had negotiated some conditions that might satisfy the appellant's concerns, but I think both parties may get into that in deeper detail. And that concludes the staff report.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank
With that, we're going to go to the applicant's case. Is the applicant present? Nope. Come on up, name and address, please.
All right, name is Jason Arsenault, address 3509 Madrona Drive, Newburgh, Oregon. We're here today as the church. I'm the associate pastor with Chehalem Christian Fellowship, and we're here to address concerns about the conditional use appeal or application that we have submitted in the appeal, and address those appeals directly. However, just this morning, right before the meeting, we've negotiated some agreements and conditions that I think are win-win for both sides. But with that, we still would like to present on the items that we've discussed or prepared for. So today we have the head pastor, Micah Routon, is going to address who we are as a church and what our intentions are, and are based on past usage, but also the vision that we have moving forward. We also have Andrew here, our counsel, to speak to legal use of the road, the small access road that is on the southern side of the property. After Andrew, we have as well Melissa Webb, who's joining us via our Zoom call to talk through. We have had a traffic study done, which is included in the docket, I believe, and speak to the results of that traffic study and how that impacts the intersection that's about 0.6 miles away south on of the property, as well as what the impacts would be on Sunday mornings and Wednesday afternoons or evenings. After Melissa, we have Tom Loris, who's our architect, to speak to the intent to how we're going to build the church, what is intended to look like, and how it will be compatible with the surrounding use. So with that, I'd like to have Micah Routon.
Thank you. Welcome, Michael. Name and address for the record, please.
My name is Micah Routon,
Micah.
and I live on 16580 Northeast Chehalem Drive, an address I'm still learning, having recently moved to the neighborhood. It's a pleasure to be here, to be in front of some of my new neighbors, though speaking to them from a microphone with my back turned to them is not the ideal situation. I understand what we're facing. I understand even the concerns raised by the neighbors. I get it. There's a lot of, often when something comes that might change, there's a fear, and that's logical. But thinking of church is interesting because there's so many different kinds of churches. It's like a restaurant. You can say we're opening a restaurant. Well, is that a McDonald's or is that a little bistro? I mean, there's just a gamut of restaurants. So I think when someone hears there's a church that might be moving into our neighborhood, it's natural to pick examples of types of churches that you don't want in your neighborhood. And one fear spawn another until the fear has taken control. I want to come and talk about not just the church who we are, but the church that we're not. We're not a church. I'll talk about who we are first. We're a church that's over 20 years old. We've been meeting for many years. We've met in the senior center in Newburgh. We met up until COVID. We met in Joanne Austin Elementary School. We're not a church that, I think the biggest advertisement we had at one point was a sandwich board. We don't call a lot of attention to ourselves. We don't have lights in the streets. We don't have big events. We're a simple church. We don't have projectors. We have song sheets that are printed out. During COVID, obviously we had to leave the school because of restrictions. And at that point, as things started clamping down and then regulations were relaxing a little bit, the schools were still not excited to have a group of believers back using their facilities, and understandably so. And so we began meeting in a baseball field in one of our members. And that baseball field, once the weather turned cold, he moved some hay out of his barn, and we began meeting there. And so we met there for approximately 4 or 5 years. Two-sided hay barn all year round. As you can imagine, it got cold. As you can imagine, there were times when we had more people because it was spring or fall, and it was nice to be in there. And when it was cold, we were the chosen frozen, for understandable reasons. And people began to call us barn church just because of the novelty of it, something that we came to identify with. The simplicity of it, we're not ostentatious. Our methods of approach to ministry, we're not a church that operates 7 days a week with our parking lot always full and always having programs available to the community. We're pretty simple. We're not, I've been in church ministries that operate more like a shopping mall where everybody has to come to church for something and there's always something happening at the church. That is not our church. We're also a church that invests in its members. We want to empower our members to do the ministry. And so the investment that comes in the form of teaching primarily. And we'll have small groups at people's houses. But we want the members of the church, as we believe Scripture tells it, that the function of the church is to empower the leaders to do the work of ministry. So we want that ministry to be done in their place where they reside, and the place where they work, and their relationships that they have naturally. So our primary ministry is teaching, where we're not a church that is focused on reaching the underprivileged or the people who are having hard time financially. I know that was a concern with some of the neighbors as far as, are we going to become a homeless camp? We have never had that as a vision of our church, nor do we intend to. I think the physical location of where we are even is prohibitive, because most people who are on hard times need to be around geographic places where they can have services, other services. And we're going to be out in the country. We have no intent of housing a homeless camp or providing a place for those. We believe that there are valid ministries out there that are addressing that need, and that's not where the Lord has called us. We're not a church that's building centric, where everything has to happen at the church. And what do we want to do as far as you'll hear the other people presenting? We want to maintain the barn church feel, the barn church mentality. We have no intention of coming and bringing bright lights and big signs. As you'll hopefully be seeing, the architect and the plans that we have for the building is to play on this barn church motif. We want to blend in. Even when we were at our members' hay barn, we maintained a very small footprint, and that was on purpose. We want to be good neighbors. We don't want to come in and oppose what we want to do. We want to be a blessing. We want to have good relationships with the neighborhood, even though it may start in a courthouse in McMinnville. I know there's potential to grow those relationships, and we're excited about that. And being good neighbors requires that we take seriously the things that the neighborhood takes seriously. Things like noise, things like traffic, drainage, light pollution. Those are all things that are going to be addressed by people far better at addressing that than me. So with that, I will turn that over to the experts.
Thank you.
Good morning, members of the board. My name is Andrew Stamp. For the record, my address is 6,000 Meadows Road, Suite 500, Lake Oswego, Oregon 97035. Here representing the applicant. And as was discussed earlier, over the last few days, we've been really trying to work with the appellant to come up with a set of negotiated conditions. And we were able to get that finally done this morning, kind of on the courtroom steps, so to speak. The most contentious issue was the access road on the south side of the property. That road was dedicated by deed in the 1970s. There had been some questions about whether that dedication was accepted by the county. The county really had no formal process for accepting the dedication made by deed. I submitted a letter to, I think I gave it to you last, didn't I? Can you put that letter in the record today? Okay, thank you. It's not in the record yet, but there I talk about dedication of roads. The bottom line is that road was accepted by the county, not for maintenance. That's a different process, determining whether something's a county road is a road that you maintain. It is not maintained by the county. But acceptance occurred by public user, which is to say that all the people that use the road don't have an easement across it, and everyone just sort of assumed it was public because it was dedicated. And that in itself becomes an implied acceptance. The other pieces of evidence there is that the original developer, when he sold the 3 lots that were accessing the road, he specifically excluded the road from their title. So he wasn't giving them a road, the underlying fee underneath the right of way. He kept it. And in his mind, he thought he dedicated it. So he thought that he didn't even own it anymore. And then he's never paid any taxes on it since then. So those are all indications that the county owns the underlying fee by public user. In any event, the major condition that was creating some heartburn is whether or not this road should be paved or not. And the church has agreed that they'll either pave it or all the way to the point where their access point is to keep the dust down. They'll either pave it, or if they don't pave it, they will agree to a maintenance agreement that will require at a minimum the church shall grade as needed, but oil the road, the parking lot and the access road a minimum of 2 times a year in order to keep the dust down. And that we hope that that'll work to make the neighbors have less impact from dust. And then there's some other conditions that aren't terribly critical, but they're all good neighbor types of things. They deal with reshaping the culvert that's in front of the property in order to make sure that our stormwater that's generated by the parking lot does not flood the neighbors out. And there'll be some landscaping that'll occur, so everything looks really nice around the parking lot. And they're going to widen the road too, because right now it's, I don't know exactly how wide it is, but it's not really ideal for two-way traffic. And so the thought is that we'd widen it to 20 feet, and that way it can accommodate two-way traffic even during the peak times that they would be using the church, which is Sunday morning and Wednesday night. That way and there's an influx of cars coming in and out, that it wouldn't prevent other people from getting to their houses. So in the spirit of cooperation, I decided, that not to put on a full-blown, discuss all the approval criterion. And so I'll cut my presentation short, but I'll reserve time for rebuttal if I hear anything that would, that I need to respond to. But other than that, I'll keep things short, because I think we have the makings of a good neighbor agreement that'll satisfy the parties to the case.
Thank you.
Are there any questions?
Questions?
No, I just had a question about the process going forward. If this is something that everybody's agreed on, are we just going to go through the whole process and then at the end, basically in discussion, go this route? I'm just wondering, are we going to hear this as a regular process with the appellant and the applicant and rebuttal and opposition and support testimony?
Let me respond to that. Because not everyone that's here, there could be potential owners that are not, opponents that are not represented by an attorney. The appellant is represented, and we've been working with the appellant. Because the conditions that we arrived at require some modifications to the original decision, it's appropriate to continue with the hearing, hear all the opponent testimony, hear a rebuttal, hopefully an abbreviated rebuttal, and then keep the record open briefly so that we can write to write the condition, staff can write the conditions up and present them to the board. I guess we don't need to keep the record open for that, but we would need staff to present a set of conditions to the board for signature probably at a later date. I guess that's the way I should frame it. It's not really leaving the record open, but giving staff an opportunity to metastasize those conditions, make sure they agree with them, obviously, and present them for signature.
Jody, you good with that?
So what will happen is you'll just stay the decision and you'll open again at staff recommendation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm just gonna follow up. Is there any more testimony in support of the application?
We do want to have our architect discuss the stormwater in large measure, because we want the neighborhood to hear what our plans are. I mean, part of these hearings is kind of educating everybody on what the plan is, in the hopes that alleviates some of the concerns.
And they are
So-
online?
Excuse me?
Are they on?
We have our architect here.
Okay.
We have a traffic engineer, hopefully online. Let's see, Melissa Webb, she's right there, yes. So we will keep her for rebuttal testimony, because I don't think we need to talk about, unless you want to hear a presentation in the case in chief. If you do, we have our traffic.
Totally up to you guys.
Okay.
Just you let me know if there's any more testimony and support that you guys want to bring forward.
Good morning.
Name and address, please. Good morning.
My name is Tom Loris. I'm an architect. 5145 Tualatin Lane in Lake Oswego, Oregon, 97035. This morning, I'd like to say, I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and speak today. I'd like to speak first of all to the stormwater issues. I know that is a big concern. Do you have the drawings that were submitted that could be put up by chance? Just curious.
Let me bring up my packet here.
Well, if there's any way we could do it electronically, I've got a zip drive here. You could post him. Nobody does that? Oh, it doesn't matter.
You know what page it is, Lance? By chance?
Yeah, no, it doesn't matter. The site, it really, from the stormwater point of view, the general slope, it's actually pretty consistent, is from the north to the south toward the road. And there's been problems with erosion over the years and during the heavy rain periods. All of this can be handled on site before it even touches that road. As a matter of fact, after the project concludes, the stormwater will all be taken care of in one of many different ways. There are retention ponds, there are detention ponds, there are dry wells. There are several methods to do this. And we have contacted Tom Sissel, Sissel Engineering. He is the civil engineer who will be doing the work. And there are no problems he sees with this site at all. Worst case scenario would probably be a retention pond down in the southwest corner that would be collecting all of the on-site water where the parking lot, is collecting that. You've got a situation where you've got, people don't think that gravel is a pervious material. It is an impervious material, and it collects just like asphalt does. It just does it at a different rate. So that's a concern. And there's a lot of gravel up there now that's been compacted over the years that's ending up over and down into the access road. And across the street, the neighbor down there actually has riprap in his ditch. So it's been a problem for a while, and we're going to take care of that in this project. So that, and there is no really stormwater issue that can't be handled on the site. What happens is in the retention pond is you retain the stormwater, the solids sink to the bottom, and there's an outlet that allows it to get into the watershed at a certain elevation and a certain rate. We can control that. So that's stormwater. You want to talk about architecture now?
Yes.
Okay, architecturally, this is a really neat project by my point of view. There's two large structures. We know one we call the barn, the other one we call the shop. It was used as an auto shop for years. The barn has an iconic gambrel roof with a cupola on top. It's a very classic, especially in the east, barn style roof. And we want to keep that and maintain that. The two buildings are about 24 feet apart. Their slabs are very, very close. So we can actually connect these two buildings together with a unifying lobby, providing all of the services that we'll need to, have use for such a large structure. It's an interesting assembly for a house of worship. It's what we call an A, I don't want to get too technical, an A3 occupancy. And there will be no fixed seating in this. So biggest problem I have is trying to make sure we have the correct restroom facilities and things of that nature. We would like to do this and maintain a farm building, outbuilding, barn style structure. We may introduce natural materials to the exterior, which would help it blend into the open land environment and the whole area in rural Yamhill. And there will be a need, we're anticipating over a 10-year period to expand. And what I would do would be to expand widthwise to pick up the extra maybe 100 seats that we would need or thereabout, but that's 10 years down the road. We're asking for that consideration during this submittal as well. And I think that's about it. Any questions?
Questions?
Thank you.
You mentioned you mentioned septic briefly, and bathrooms. Could you discuss plans for if it's needed to expand the existing septic system, and we're going to do that?
Yeah, I anticipate we will need to expand the septic and rearrange what's happening now. There are two small restrooms, one in each of the two existing buildings. And we've already talked about and had a perk test done up there. The ground is appropriate for a drain field, and I think we're going to be rearranging the drain field at the residence that's up there now too. So that's a very important consideration. Facility like this that only meets once or twice a week is not producing as much wastewater as you'd think. The neighbors may be concerned about that, but it is an appropriate concern, and there is plenty of land for it. If you could see the preliminary site plans, they're in the packet. You'll see that 7.6 some acres, we're only using maybe an eighth of that. Maybe a third.
All right.
Questions?
No, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
All right,
Is that eighth isn't with the parking lot though, correct?
Pardon me?
That eighth isn't with the park, you're just talking about drain field.
Yeah, no, but it's a small portion. It's the overall parking and structures is probably a quarter of the site.
And obviously the drain field design, subject to a separate process, your sanitarian will review that and approve it to make sure that it's sized correctly to adequately handle the wastewater collected during.
Andrew, can you speak into the mic, please?
Oh, hopefully, if you didn't hear me, the actual physical design of the septic system is a separate ministerial permit. It goes through the
Yeah.
county sanitarian, so it is reviewed to make sure that it's sized adequately. But we have anticipate no feasibility issues. Got plenty of land to work with to expand the drain field. And obviously, if we ran into a problem, there's alternative tertiary filtration designs available now from Orenco, the Avantech systems that we could use if we had to, if we ran into a problem with soils or anything like that.
I'm not worried about the drain fields. I think we have sanitarium for that. Yeah. While you guys are here though, really quick, I understand, but just for clarity, can you tell me where the parking lot will be? Will it be on that west field there, just from the shop building, or is it a different spot?
It's, if you're familiar with the access road
Mhm.
to the shop building, it would
Yeah.
start there and move toward the east.
Okay, so the other side. Okay, got it. Thank you.
It's more or less on the middle southern portion of the site. And it'll have some landscaping around it to help it blend in with the neighborhood.
Thank you.
All right, well, that was a very abbreviated presentation. I hope you appreciate that in the interest of the fact that we did negotiate a set of conditions, so we've reduced our presentation.
Thank you.
accordingly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Sir, I see you raising your hand. If you can give comment, are you in support or against the application?
Against.
Okay, fill out a green sheet and Bailey, and hand it to Bailey there and we'll get you. Okay, perfect. You can ask it when you come up. Yep, thank you. So we're gonna move on to, if there's no more testimony in support, we're gonna move on to the appellant's case. Come on up, name and address, please. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Jessica Kane. I'm with Kane Law Company at 111 North College Street in Newburgh, Oregon. I'm here representing the appellants Terry and Cindy Paskett. I have Terry Paskett here with me. I'll let him introduce himself and state his address.
My name is Terry Paskett. I reside at 16550 Northeast Chehalem Drive.
Thank you.
I first want to thank the commissioners and staff for the time this morning and considering this application or appeal of the application. There were many issues that the neighbors had concerns with, and we did address those issues in the initial application. We felt like the conditions of approval didn't flesh out appropriately the necessary items to ensure that the church remains a compatible use. While a church is permitted in AF10, it doesn't mean it's always compatible with the surrounding uses. And that was really the focus of this appeal. We were successful in negotiating some terms that both parties are willing to abide by, which will include a shared maintenance agreement of the access road. I gave a copy of those to staff to provide to you. There is one small change, and I'll just read it out so that if you look at item under number 2, roadway width and improvements, the second paragraph, we'd like to add the church agrees to widen and pave or gravel would be the additional language there. And then the last sentence of that condition would be, if gravel is retained, the church shall include in the shared maintenance agreement to grade when necessary and oil the parking lot and access road a minimum of 2 times a year. And I think that these conditions of approval address the concerns that the appellants had, the Paskets had, and they're willing to support the application. I do think it's important. Mr. Stamp mentioned that he had submitted a letter to staff. I have not seen that letter regarding the road access. Maybe I missed it in the things that you sent to me, so,
It was never entered into the record.
okay.
Yeah.
So he's now asked for it to be entered into the record. I don't know what it says. That concerns me, obviously, being an attorney. I'm not saying I agree to something that I haven't seen. What I do think is important to know, and I'll provide some case law analysis for you guys to look at, but really, the access road has never been determined to be a county road. There's a dedication, but there's lots of case law, and I'm assuming that Andrew's letter addresses this case law. I also have a brief that addresses the case law, and I think that it is imperative that the county commissioners recognize that you cannot approve a conditional use permit without substantial evidence establishing lawful adequate access to serve the proposed use. And that implied dedication or of a public road cannot be assumed. It has to be a finding that's made as part of the staff findings and part of the conditions of approval. And so I would just encourage, I'm not saying that it's not, I'm saying I would encourage that that be a finding that is part of the condition or part of the findings and conditions of approval, because I think that the case law supports that that's necessary in order to be able to approve the conditional use permit and also to enforce any conditions that you have with regard to that access road. And so I'm happy to read this, but I'd rather spare you all the pain of reading 2 pages of case analysis. But it pretty much, that's the summary of it, is that there has to be a specific finding that that is a county road and that's privately maintained. And then, of course, these conditions would then serve to handle the maintenance of that road. The only other issue that I want to address is that the architect did discuss stormwater and talk about some solutions. I want to make sure that that's not in place of what the conditions that we agreed upon are, which is that an engineer complete a full analysis of the stormwater impacts and come up with a plan that is then within county ordinances, that meets county ordinances, and then is presented to staff and adopted as, you know, part of the conditions for the building permit. And so I don't think an architect has the qualifications necessary to perform that study. And so I want to make sure that that our conditions acknowledge that it has to be an engineered stormwater plan that's designed in order to meet the conditions. So I'm kept it short and sweet, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And I can hand this case law as I'm parting, unless you guys want to look at it now and have questions about it.
I think we mainly just need to make sure Jody is aware of what you're speaking about.
I mean, without reading it, I don't want to say.
Okay, well, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Lance now has it in his hands, so.
Okay.
And I'd like that entered into the record. And then, yes, I'm happy to email a copy to Jody as well, or Lance can do that. So,
Thank you.
any other questions?
Any questions?
No, thank you.
I don't think so. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, with that, I have 4. Let me make sure I'm in order here. Yes, so we're going to take testimony in opposition, and I have 5 submissions here, and I'm just going to start with the order that they were given to me. The first up, I have Paul Natali. Yep, name and address, please. Good morning.
Would this be, good morning. Would this be on?
Yep, it's on. Just bring it close to you so Jody can hear you. And
So my name is Paul Natali, Natale, and I live at 17695 Northeast Chehalem Drive. And I guess I'm involved in this primarily because I asked the question about whether there had been traffic studies done. And at the time, which was several months ago, the answer was they weren't sure, but it sounds like now there's some traffic studies. So And my background is engineering. I was an electrical engineer and a computer engineer. So I thought, well, I'll do some traffic studies and see what's going on. One of the things that I think is really important is about a year ago, the intersection at Chehalem Drive and North Valley had a very serious accident, and I think it was a fatality. My wife saw it and she told me about it, and I went down and looked at it. And then I started looking at that intersection and I got extremely concerned because it's a very blind intersection for the North Valley approach. West of that, it rises up, and then the speed limit on North Valley is 55 miles an hour. And then it goes over the top of the hill and comes down right on Chehalem Drive. And I could see that it's probably an accident waiting to happen, especially if somebody with a towed vehicle came off of Chehalem Drive and tried to make it across there. And I looked at it several times, and if nothing else happens, it should be fixed. And I talked to the county about it, and I was requesting, if nothing else, make it a four-way stop so that ongoing traffic, which goes from 55 down to 45, that ongoing traffic isn't hitting that intersection at that 55 miles an hour, because there's just not enough time to stop to avoid the traffic. So anyway, so when I heard about this additional traffic that we're going to put on Chehalem Drive, I thought this is going to exacerbate the situation, and probably we'll be looking at a fatality at a certain, now maybe it's one a year, one every other year, but I think you're going to see some fatalities at this intersection if nothing else is done. So anyway, make a long story short, I went in and did so I'm not a traffic engineer, full disclosure, but I went in and I looked at all the different intersections that would be impacted. And this one is the worst. In fact, when I went into Google Earth and looked at it, the picture that came up on Google Earth, and I submitted this, my little 6-page study showing a picture of this. And it just so happened that the person who was driving ahead of the Google Earth car was speeding. He was going 51 miles an hour, and he's coming up over so this intersection needs to be dealt with. Otherwise, there's going to be fatalities and there's going to be lawsuits. In addition, I looked at all the drainage. And when I say drainage, I'm not talking about the kind of drainage we're talking about this morning, but the traffic drainage out of this facility for what I understood to be 200 cars after the service on Sunday. And I tried to kind of figure out which way they would go. And it looked like by using some numbers and AI, I used Google AI and ChatGPT and ran some numbers. And it looks like there's going to be some fairly significant backup after the Sunday service. I think, yeah, so as long as I can submit this for the record, and I really don't want to take any more time, but this intersection is going to be a big problem. And I understand you have a traffic engineer who maybe has already addressed this, but that's pretty much my whole story. Thank you for letting me have the time to talk.
Absolutely.
I've never done this before.
You did well. Good
Yeah.
job.
Thank you.
Excuse me?
You did well.
Oh,
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any questions for him? No? Okay.
I-
Go ahead and hand that paperwork to Lance, please.
Paul, I would just say I've lived and driven on North Valley for almost 20 years. And so I do know exactly what you're talking about there. And it is can be a scary intersection. So I just know that I have that experience that you're talking about.
I think recently they put in the.
Yeah, there's some
Control.
flashing lights and some speed signs and so on. And I do
And
think that it's helped on some level, but I can't say that it's drastic.
And and by the way, I do go to church every Sunday, so I am a church guy. But on the way home from church, and we go to the Abbey, but on the way home, my mate and I he was driving, and I pointed out the sign to him, and he was going 55 miles an hour, and I said, "You're speeding." So no more time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Paul.
Up next, I'm going to call Stephen Johnson. If you'd still like to give testimony, come on up. Name and address, please. Good morning.
My name is Steve Johnson, currently living at 89721 Lanikona Road, Captain Cook, Hawaii, owning property at 17691 Chehalem Drive. I grew up and that property was part of the family property as I was growing up. I had not a question, but a statement concerning the runoff from the parking lot. Yes, the slope is north to south, but then it's from the west to the east. It does not naturally drain toward Chehalem Drive. It drains away from Chehalem Drive. So that was misrepresented in my opinion, and I have grown up there. I know this property very well. They state that there's going to be parking for 200 cars currently. Made a statement that they would be in 10 years adding another 100. That's going to exacerbate the drainage problem again. Now the septic, they say it's going to be minimal since it's only a couple days a week. Well, having been a church member for a good share of my life, membership changes. They already said that they're going to have to increase the parking because of increased parishioners, which in my mind, having been in the septic business in the early 80s here in Oregon, you have 200 cars, that's 600 people. And yes, they're going to be here for a couple of hours or 3 hours on Sunday, a couple of hours on Wednesday at a decreased number of people. It's going to be a significant amount of septic discharge. There is no city water out there. This is all wells. That will have an impact on the potable water, regardless of what the architect is saying. This needs to be very well studied by the county to determine whether or not in 10 years, when you have added 200 or 300 people in there twice a week or 3 times a week or 4 times a week, because we know the activities aren't going to be fixed at only Sundays and Wednesdays. Having been in church, and I'm sure that some of you are faithful followers, you know that the activities are more than just a couple days a week. That needs to really be studied by the county, whether or not it's going to be sufficient without actually putting in a sewage disposal system, which is millions of dollars. Now the road. Our father, who passed last year, spent 20 years trying to put a subdivision in on the main property, 2 corners up from this property. And they had to put up to the state $60,000 when they first made the application for the subdivision to fix the problem down at North Valley Road, Chehalem Drive. Of course, nothing's been done. State has the money. And that was for 40 full lots. Okay, two cars, that's 80 cars. Now you're having a 200 car parking lot. Okay, that's way more than 80. That intersection needs to be fixed. You're going, as Paul said, you're going to have people killed. Having grown up there, driven on those roads for most of my life, the traffic gets crazy. It gets crazy. And when you add another 200 cars twice a week, or 200 cars once a week, 80 cars once a week, at the same time, because it's not spread out over the day, it's concentrated during that short period of time, you're asking for problems. And it needs to be addressed. Now, this is personal to you. If you're affiliated with this church or family members are affiliated with this church, you should recuse yourself from making a decision. That's what I have to say.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Any
you.
questions?
Thank you.
Nope. Okay, thank you. Next up, I have Margaret Reed. Good morning.
Good morning.
Name and address, please.
My name is Margaret Reed. I live at 16390 Northeast Chehalem Drive, directly adjacent to the property we're speaking of. As this started, it kind of felt like a moot point for me to come up. It sounds like we've got ways to figure things out to make this work, but I'm here to appeal the approval of the conditional use. And I've got 47 neighbors who agree with me. And when I don't know much about these kinds of things, but I received, what we can appeal on, and looking at the ordinances, this is what, anyway, I'll just read this. We are writing this letter to appeal the tentative approval of the conditional use permit for 16580 Northeast Chehalem Drive, Newburgh, Oregon, docket C-09, tax lot 3206-04900. We would like to first thank first of all, thank the planning director for hearing our concerns and addressing many of these concerns at the tentative approval. And it's what a lot has been talked about. There's many things that are concerns, and there are ways to address each of those. However, we are appealing because unfortunately no permits, studies, inspections, analysis, professional opinions, modifications, pre-approvals, regulations, or maintenance plans can address Ordinance 501.01 Rural Residential Districts Agricultural/Forestry Smallholding District AF10. Ordinance 501.01 states the purpose of this ordinance is to provide for low density rural residential development, at the same time to encourage small scale or more intensive farm and forestry activities. We do not feel a church that currently has 200 attendees and hopes to grow to 330 and is constructing a parking lot that will allow growth to 800 people. According to condition 5, the applicant shall provide and maintain a parking area so that there is a minimum of 1 space per 4 seats. That these are neither small scale or low density. Yamhill County has made a strong commitment to preserving its agricultural heritage and forest lands by writing ordinances such as those written for AF10 areas, small scale, low density. Growth is inevitable, and Newburgh's comprehensive urban growth plan has North Valley as its northern border, stating urban growth shall move westward. The proposed church's address is north of North Valley, not west. We purchased our property believing urban growth would remain south of North Valley. Also, zoning ordinance 1202.02D states the proposed use will not alter the character of the surrounding area in a manner which substantially limits, impairs, or prevents the use of surrounding properties. A church of this size with the many people, many cars, lighting parking lot that goes with that, many activities and many uses that a large church generates will greatly alter the character of the AF10 countryside where we purposefully chose to live. We purchased our property for a quiet, lack of artificial light, open spaces, solitude lifestyle the countryside provides. Johnny on the Spot was a small automotive repair business on this same property, and a few cars coming and going throughout the week did not have a negative impact. There was no extra lighting other than what he had for the existing building. Johnny had cows, chickens, donkeys, goats, and cats that used the pasture that is proposed to become a 200-space parking lot. There are no large paved areas in our neighborhood. There is no artificial light illuminating a large parking lot in our neighborhood. We are surrounded by farmland and trees. Once paved, these acres can never again be farmed or used as a pasture. A successful church has daily, varied, and numerous comings and goings. A church being built in the middle of the countryside will greatly alter the character of our area. In conclusion, we are citing ordinance 501.01 Rural Residential Districts Agricultural/Forestry Small Holding District AF10, arguing the church is neither small scale or low density. Ordinance 1202.02D, arguing the church will alter the character of our countryside neighborhood, and the Newburgh Growth Plan, with North Valley being its northern border and urban growth moving westward. For these reasons, and in order to uphold the integrity of the AF10 zone designation and protect the long-term rural and agricultural viability of the area, we respectfully request you hear our plea and deny this conditional use application. So, thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Any
I'm
questions?
a Jesus believer. It's not that it's a church coming in. It's not, it's anything, it's the large pavement and illuminated, all the things that have been talked about. But anyway, thank you very much for your time.
Appreciate it. Thanks. All right, next up, I'm going to call Rick Johnson. Good morning. If you could state your name and address for the record, please.
Good morning. My name is Rick Johnson. I live at 17699 Northeast Chehalem Drive, Newburgh. Thank you for letting us speak. I'm going to make it real short because the people that preceded me hit most of my concerns. What I didn't hear is how the proposed church traffic would be handled, leaving the short, small side road, if you will, that enters into Chehalem Drive. My dad, our dad, developed that way back in the 1970s, and it was never designed to accommodate 50 cars, let alone 200 or more. And dumping onto Chehalem Drive right there, I heard nothing to be said about how this would be handled. I've lived off and on this road since 1956. I have had an accident myself on that curve just north of the church property when a person cut the curve and I had nowhere to go, and I climbed the bank and I still got hit. And dumping this kind of traffic onto Chehalem Drive without some accommodation being planned for and put in place before the church is put in is nothing but a recipe for disaster. Everything else that I was going to talk about has been covered, so I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, next up, I have Ian. And if you could come up and pronounce your last name for me, that'd be great.
My name's Ian Shu.
Shu, thank you.
I
And
live
address, please.
16215 Northeast Chehalem Drive, directly diagonal to this property. I see it every morning. As somebody, I've lived there for 6 years, as somebody who's been hit by a impatient driver on that road on April 2nd of 2025, I had a vehicle try and pass me on the left in no passing zone, struck me and totaled my vehicle. The traffic is a huge concern. The other gentlemen, or several of them, have mentioned North Valley and Chehalem Drive. One thing I want to point out is any traffic that's coming from the west on North Valley Road to turn on to Chehalem Drive, you come over, or to go straight through, you come over that early in the morning when they're going to have church services on Sunday and the sun's coming up is right in your face. you've got you're blinded. So that's a huge concern. That intersection needs to be addressed. So any traffic plan needs to take into consideration the traffic from the church to North Valley Road and then the North Valley intersection. As many have mentioned, we bought property out there to be in a quiet area, bringing 80, 200, whatever the car count will be out there on a Sunday morning at 7:30 will definitely destroy part of what we bought that property for. I strongly oppose putting this church out there. It's just not the right fit. I guess that's about all I've got to say.
All right, we appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody online that has testimony in opposition, raise your virtual hand. And did we get everybody that's in the audience? Sir. Come on up to the microphone again, please.
Just a really quick question. How much money, what's the cost of this project to convert this barn to a church? Can the art?
Questions noted, and we'll see if the applicant wants to come back up and answer that. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
With that, we're going to do public agency reports.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We're going to get to that, yep, after public agency. Thank you. Yep. That's all right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Public Works Department responded to the Planning Department's referral, noting that Shalem Drive is classified as a major collector road, and this was based on vehicle count data collected in May of 2024. And further, they concluded that Shalem Drive should be able to handle the additional traffic generated by the church if it gets approved. Public Works also noted that improvements are needed at the intersection of Shalem Drive and that side road, spur road that runs along the southern property line, and that should be completed before building permits are issued for the church. The county sanitarian also responded to our referral, noting that the shop accessory building was connected to an approved septic system in 2006. And I believe that was to serve the automobile repair business that had operated there previously. However, a site evaluation was completed and approved in July of last year for the church service. The sanitarian noted that the septic site must be staked out, and prior to issuance of septic installation permits, the system may need to be designed by a septic consultant, depending on the system configuration and size. The building official also commented on this referral, noting that engineering for the structure of the church buildings will be required, and the plans will need to be drawn by a design professional. The design professional will also need to conduct a fire, life, and safety analysis, as well as an occupancy class and load review for the buildings that will be renovated to serve the church use if this request is approved. And finally, the Soil and Water Conservation District submitted comments informing the property owner of the responsibility to comply with the Yamhill Basin Agricultural Water Quality Management Area Plan and to control for any noxious weeds that could be located on the property. And that concludes public agency reports.
Thank you very much. And that brings us up to rebuttal by the applicant.
Andrew Stamp back on the record. Want to address a few issues. One, I heard it mentioned that this is not a county road. I wanted to clarify what that means. A county road is a term of art. It doesn't mean any road that's owned by the county, any right-of-way owned by the county. It's a specific designation for a road that has been accepted into the county's maintenance system. For example, any road that you maintain is going to have a CR number in front of it. And that indicates that you're responsible to maintain it. We agree that the major road, Chehalem, is a county road. But the little access road on the southern side of the site is not a county road. The county does not maintain it. It's what's known as a local access road, and that's public right-of-way that has not been accepted for maintenance. So just to clarify those terms, you know, there's a difference between a county road and a local access road. They're both public right-of-way, though. It was mentioned that you know, the architect is not an engineer. We agree with that. We do have a engineer who will design the stormwater plan, so I didn't want to confuse things there. We're not relying on our architect to design stormwater improvements, or for that matter, the septic improvements. That's all handled by engineers. I do have Melissa Webb here, and I'll ask her to respond to traffic concerns. There was some testimony about 200 to 300 cars. I think that was a misunderstanding. Right now, our plans show 80 cars, and the expansion would be to 145 cars, ideally in the future, 10-year plan. So the 200 to 300 is the number of people that we assume would be here. The traffic report, I think, was 2.5 people per cars was the assumption made for churches, but Melissa can clarify that. There was testimony about how churches have more impacts than just on 2 days of the week. I guess there's different types of churches. That was one of the things that the pastor mentioned when he first testified here, is that, you know, there's different types of churches that have different level of activities. And this church is on the lower end of the impact scale. They're anticipating Sunday services and Wednesday services, but it's not a 7-day-a-week kind of church that has daycare and, you know, activities every night. It's a lot more low key than that. So, but I think people always assume the worst case scenario, and this is not the worst case scenario when it comes to a church. Ms. Reed mentioned the Yamhill County zoning ordinance 50101, which I don't have in front of me, but that's a purpose statement. It's not an approval standard. So whenever you see that in the first section of all your zoning codes, every zone, it'll describe what the intent of the zone is. That's generally speaking not an approval standard, and that's the case here. There was mention that there was an approval standard that for conditional uses that says the proposed use will not alter the character of the surrounding area in a manner that substantially limits, impairs, or prevents the use of surrounding properties for the permitted uses listed in the underlying zoning district. Ms. Reed addressed that criterion, but not in a way that would result in, even if her testimony is understood, that would not meet this standard to deny the application. It's substantially limit. It's not inconvenience to the neighbors. It's not cause some change. This standard allows some changes to the neighborhood to occur, and frankly, any development that comes into an area is going to create some changes. Although, you know, it's a question of degree, and this criteria is written in a way that prevents substantial limitations, impairments, or prevents the use from occurring. And I don't think that standard is violated here. I mean, I think everyone's going to continue to use their property for residential purposes and for small scale farming uses. And there's nothing that the church is going to do that I heard today that would prohibit those uses from occurring. There's a testimony from a gentleman named Mr. Johnson, who interestingly enough is apparently the son of the original developer who dedicated that access road in the 1970s. He said, the quote was, "This was never designed to accommodate 50 cars." I question that statement, however, because he dedicated 60 feet of right of way, and 60 foot is the amount that you would dedicate if you were intending to build a full scale county road. You know, if you're just doing a small access easement equivalent of a driveway, you do 20 feet or maybe 30 if you needed utilities to come in. But by putting in 60 foot of right of way, that's a really good explanation of intent, that this is intended to be a county road for whatever purposes a county road is used for. All right, so with that, Melissa, can you bring Melissa up to where she can be a panelist? Okay. Melissa, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Perfect. Is there an opportunity for me to share my screen? I did make a kind of a short presentation that kind of hits a lot of the main traffic arguments that were brought up.
I think you'd have to do that from your end or okay, okay.
All right, let me share what I have.
Let's get your name and address also, please.
Sure. My name is Melissa Webb. I work with AKS Engineering and Forestry as a traffic engineer. And the address for the office I work out of is 2777 Northwest Lolo, Lolo Drive, Suite 150, and that's Bend, Oregon 97703. All right, are you guys able to see this?
We are.
Perfect. All right, so I know before this, there was kind of an agreement that was made, so I'll just briefly kind of go through a few of these slides, and hopefully this will answer a lot of the questions that were brought up recently. So we did do these two study intersections. The first one is the site access, and the second one is down here, Chehalem and Northeast North Valley. These intersections were coordinated with Yamhill County staff. We collected our traffic counts at these two intersections on a Sunday between the hours of 9 a.m. and 1 p.m. And the goal of that was to capture that inbound and outbound traffic, you know, the group going inwards to the church and then the group coming outward as well. All right, give me 1 second. I'm trying to move my presentation forward. There we go. So we, based on staff recommendation, we did do our trip generation based on the existing church volume. So we had a traffic counter out there counting vehicles entering and leaving the existing church parking lot on a Sunday. And that was where the church is currently meeting at Joan Austin Elementary School. And again, we collected the counts between 9 a.m. and 1 p.m. just to get those people that were coming in for service and leaving at the end of their service time. So it's important to note that when we look at the operational analysis, we're really comparing how the intersections operate to performance standards. So in this case, for Yamhill County, what we look at is LOSD, which is level of service, and that's how the intersection operates. It ranges anywhere from, you know, just like an elementary school, you know, A is the best, F is the worst. So what we look at is how is the intersection operating. We also look at the volume to capacity ratio, that's known as VC, and that kind of looks at the capacity of the intersection, so what's available, and then we compare that to the volume that's actually going through the intersection. So for Yamhill County, we were looking at a level of service D or below, so basically A, B, C, D. And we also looked at City of Newburgh performance standards, since the site is located just outside the city limits. And their requirements are also a level of service D or better, and their maximum VC ratio is 0.90. So you can, if you look, this is a table pulled right out of the traffic impact study. In these build out conditions, this is when the church is expected to be complete and operational. We're looking at level of services of A for this site at the access at Northeast Chehalem. And then we're looking at level of service B here at Chehalem and Northeast North Valley. And again, our VC ratios are well below the 0.90 threshold. So we can look at this and say, you know, yes, the intersections are operating at or below the required performance standards. Queuing was an issue that was brought up. So with our software, we use Synchro software, we were able to do a queuing analysis of what is expected at that site access. We estimated that we looked at the southbound vehicles turning left into the site, and we found an average or a 95th percentile queue length of 25 feet. So that's approximately one car, assuming that an average car is about 25 feet. And then for the outbound traffic, we looked at the queue as well. And that one was about 75 feet. So around 3 vehicles is what is expected for queuing at this location. We looked also at crash history. We did not see any crashes at the existing site access. We did look at Northeast Chehalem Drive and Northeast North Valley Road. For our crash data analysis, we use the most recent 5 years of available crash data that's provided. And in this case, the dates are January of 2019 to December of 2023. Those are the dates that are considered appropriate for looking. One question might be, well, why aren't you using 2024 or 2025? That data is preliminary right now, so it's not available and it's not acceptable for use in a study at this point. We're usually run approximately 2 years behind. And so when we looked at that, we noticed that there were 3 crashes reported during that 5-year period. Of those crashes, there were no fatalities. There were no collisions that involved a pedestrian or a bicyclist. We also looked at the, it's called the ODOT Safety Priority Index System. Okay, that lists intersections that are have like a high crash rating. And in this case, that intersection was not listed on the 2023 SIPS list. We did check site distance as well, both at the existing site access and the Northeast North Valley Road Chehalem Drive intersection. At the site access, we looked at both the intersection site distance as well as the stopping site distance. Intersection site distance is considered a minimum recommended, whereas stopping site distance is the required. So you have to have at least your stopping site distance. And we look at the AASHTO manual, and it's based on a posted speed of 35 miles an hour. So we found measured at the site, there was an available site distance of over 500 feet, and that's both to the north and to the south. If you were exiting the site there, looking to the north and looking to the south. We also checked it at Chehalem and Northeast North Valley. Again, for this one, we actually, the county requested that we take an 85th percentile speed study. So what that means, 85th percentile speed is the speed that vehicles are traveling at or below. So 85% of the vehicles are traveling at or below a speed. And the speed we determined from the study was the 85th percentile speed was 46 miles an hour. And the posted speed along that section is 45 miles an hour. So that tells us that a majority of the vehicles are going approximately, within a mile or two of the posted speed in that area. To the east, the available site distance did exceed the minimum required. The minimum required stopping site distance was 375 feet based on that 46 mile an hour 85th percentile speed. So to the east, we had over 600 feet. So site distance was good there. To the west, there has been a lot of discussion about the curve, the crest in the road, and that definitely does make site distance challenging for cars coming up and over the hill. So what we did was we looked at the elevations in the roadway based on the elevation right there at the intersection, and then we went down, or I guess to the east, we went kind of up on the hill, checked the elevation there, and we did determine that there is a site distance availability out to that minimum of 375 feet. And we base that again on AASHTO requirements. where we assume that the oncoming vehicle, that your driver's eye height is 3.5 feet above the pavement, and that your waiting vehicle, so the person waiting at the intersection, their eye height is 3.5 feet above the pavement. So yeah, just in summary, we found that study intersections operated within the performance standards. Our queues were expected to be brief and connected to the times shortly before service starts and directly after it ends. The queues were not expected to block existing roadway infrastructure. So I know there was concern about vehicles along that roadway being blocked by really long queues, and that the analysis shows that that's not expected. We found that reviewing the available crash data, doing our crash analysis and checking the SPIS rankings, that the crash patterns were consistent with the geometry and traffic control at the intersection. And adequate sight distance is available at both study intersections to meet the minimum requirements. So that is all I have. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask.
Any questions?
Melissa, could you put the PowerPoint into the record by emailing it to Lance?
Yes, I can do that.
Thank you. Any other questions of Ms. Webb?
No.
Okay, we're going to try to wrap up pretty quick. A couple alibis here that I didn't mention. One of the opponents mentioned lighting and the effect that lighting would have on livability, that that approval standard. I did want to mention that the church has agreed by condition of approval. It's one of the conditions that we negotiated, that we would use light pollution prevention measures, and all exterior lighting will be placed, shielded, or directed to avoid shining onto adjacent dwellings or creating glare amongst along the shared driveway or public roads. I think that's the most recent wording, but something to that effect will be a condition. So we're committed to not creating a lighting problem. And the overall goal here is to make the church blend in as much as possible with the rural residential / barn feeling, agricultural feeling of the area. Another condition that was negotiated was there was concern about the church creating a homeless camp or something like that. I mean, that has been some churches do engage in a kind of outreach towards homeless and provide shelter for them. And this is not that type of church. And so we agreed that we would prohibit homeless camping and homeless services on the property. So that we wanted to alleviate that concern. Yes. Yeah. Well, yes, it would be as long as the church is operational.
Anybody could change that.
Sir, we're going to let the applicant finish. Sorry.
No, it's a condition of approval that as long as the property's operating as a church, the county could enforce that and send their code enforcement officer out and say, hey, you promised you wouldn't do that. Now you're doing it. So we're going to red tag you or whatever it is that, whatever the remedy is, fine you up $500 a day or whatever.
And I might also add that usually we make these conditions personal to the applicant. So if this church operator changes ownership and a new church operator comes in, we have the opportunity to continue that condition of approval. So even if this church ends in 20 years, a new operator comes on, they would be likely to be subject to that condition of approval unless they specifically requested for that to be removed.
Conditional use permit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Which allows for appeals.
Yeah. Correct.
Right. And we would also go through a new application process. If the church were to change hands, we normally go through another conditional use permitting process. So neighbors are made aware that a new operator has come on and what, if any, changes they propose. So we would go through this whole process again.
Thank you.
And lastly, I wanted to talk about noise issues. And since I don't have any firsthand understanding of how the church operates, I asked Jason to come up here and discuss kind of how their church operates with regards to generating noise and that kind of thing.
Sure. Jason Arsenault again on record. an associate pastor for the church. And yeah, we noticed a trend in many of the letters that were written in opposition, referring to noise levels. I'm the primary worship leader at the church, and I haven't touched an electric guitar in probably 20 years. Primary instrumentation is acoustic, and we have, as far as in most, speaking in auditory ways, most people's concern about the noise, especially in worship services in a church, is the drums. We also are typically using hand percussion, which is much lower volume than a traditional drum set. And by the way, I submitted into record, I believe Lance has gotten, and I think it was distributed to the other party, a description of our services and how that works out. But as far as noise level goes, we have a congregation from infants to elderly, and our intention noise is to respect that in our services. So the volume is just enough to get it audible, and so that people could sing along with the worship at the beginning of the service. We're not a rock church, if you know, as people sometimes, no smoke machines, no dim lighting, no crazy. If you can tell by my footwear here, you know, the style of music is not conducive to loud volumes, and that's been the case for the history of our church for the last 20 plus years. It hasn't changed from that.
Keep the doors open or closed during the service typically
Typically doors are closed during the service, yeah, which is a safety precaution that we use just to especially in our current meeting location, yeah. So just wanted to speak to that, and then unless you have anything else, I think Micah can close out our.
Yeah, sure.
Micah Routen again, for the record. I guess I'm supposed to say that because other people say it when they come up here.
Sounds good.
Yeah, it does. Couple things that the neighbors were questioning that I wanted to touch on a little bit. There was a concern about the number of people leaving church and creating congestion. I think Melissa spoke to that well, but I think for the neighbors to know how we end our services is we end in small groups of prayer. So we say kind of amen, and then people circle their chairs. We do that for a couple of reasons. Because we believe in the power of prayer. We've seen that work and God do some amazing things through those prayers, but it also encourages people to get to know one another and talk longer. And so as those prayer groups disband, then people meander to their car. It's not like a concert getting out, or it's not like a movie getting over and everybody flocks to the doors and goes to their cars and drives away. Another concern that was brought up multiple times was the number of cars. Now, I kind of want to explain how that number was arrived upon. As we were filling out the application for the conditional use permit, it required a drawing. And so it was a very basic drawing. We're like, well, okay, here's where the building's going to go, and here's where the parking lot's going to go, and we're going to just fill in a number of spaces. And the number of spaces that went out in the mailing it is not connected to the number of spaces that we're currently using. There's also a big fear of church growth. If you talk to most church pastors, explosive church growth is not something that really happens or very often. As in fact, church attendance unfortunately continues to fall as the years have progressed. So I wanted to talk also, it was in the report that the county sent out. Oh, excuse me. About the capacity of, okay, here we go. About the capacity of Chehalem Drive. The department noted that a traffic count was conducted May of 2024, and in the study found that Northeast Chehalem Drive had an average daily count of 1,139 vehicles per day and would classify Chehalem Drive as a major collector. The Public Works Department has noted that Chehalem Drive appears to be sufficiently engineered to handle the increased traffic that would be generated by the operation of a church from this parcel, the subject parcel. So an increase of 80 to 100 cars perhaps on a Sunday, both the drive and the intersection is engineered for that. we are intentionally simple as far as we're going to have 7 churches 7 days a week. I did my internship at a church that operated like that, and it wore its people out. They were at church and expected to be at church every single day. And I saw the effects that had on their family. I want our church members to be fed spiritually enough that they can live their lives where God has them. And being a preacher, I have to end with a little bit of something like that. We've talked a lot about what we want to do. We know where we want to do it. We've talked that we're working on how we're going to do that. But the question remains of why are we doing this? Does Newburgh need another church? The answer is varied. Some people say yes, some people say no. It's interesting. When my family moved to the Newburgh area in 1987, they told me that we were in the Guinness Book of World Records for the most churches per capita. And they said that with pride. Now, as I've lived in Newburgh much of my life since then, our population in the city has doubled. And yet the number of the churches has not. The Barna Group, the Pew Research Center, the Public Religious Research Institute said that the Portland metropolitan area is the least church area of the nation. It's also very high occurrences of depression. The two things are not unrelated because multiple longitudinal studies have found a link between attending church services and good mental health. Research conducted by Duke University and Harvard agree that people who attend religious services at least weekly are significantly less to become depressed than those who never attend. So from a scientific and mental health perspective, it could be argued that in a time when our city's population is growing and depression and other mental challenges are on the rise, our churches and our communities need churches more now than ever, not less. I think about the church health of the city of Newburgh, and I want to draw our attention to the Filbert Orchard that's pretty much on the corner of Chehalem Drive and North Valley. The residents of that know what I'm talking about. You go past around those corners and you see the work that's been going on there. What you see is an aging orchard, an orchard that has been trimmed, but you also see young trees that have been planted. Because those young trees are vital to maintain the health of the orchard, because the orchard, as it ages, as it grows, as the older trees die out, to maintain its productivity, to maintain its health, needs new trees. Our church is not a new tree. We've been around for 20 years, but what we're hoping to do is establish a permanent residence, a home, if you will. As Christians, we believe that no matter the problem, that Jesus is the answer. We say that not from a theological cloud. We say that from personal experiences. When we've had problems, when we've walked through hard times, we know that Jesus is the answer. Seasons of loss or even cultural upheaval, Jesus and the Word of God give us the anchor we need. And Jesus taught his disciples that they were the light of the world. And that is what we hope to be as a church, a light that points people to Jesus. I don't think the question today is if the Pacific Northwest needs more churches. I think the main thing that we're dealing with is the feeling of not in my backyard. We like good ideas. We just want these ideas to be done somewhere else. No doubt you commissioners have faced these issues before of not in my backyard. And oftentimes when we confront those, there's strong emotions. And emotions can be on both sides. Emotions are important, but emotions shouldn't direct our lives or be the basis for our decision. As we've been prayerfully walking through this process as a church, we keep asking, what is God doing? Where does God want us? Is God going to open this door? We want to be where he wants us to be, period. I've heard people say, I've heard it said, why is God letting a church be there if I'm praying against it? We have never prayed for this property. We have prayed that God's will be done. We want to walk in accordance to God's will. If God opens the door, amen. We're excited about it. Okay. There's tensions on both sides, and we get that. The land is zoned for this. Finding it was hard. We're talking about God's approval. We're Chehalem Christian Fellowship. Finding a piece of property on Chehalem Drive seems providential. We have, as we've shown, we have complied with the conditions and we will continue to apply. We're not asking for special treatment. We're asking the opportunity to serve. Newburgh has grown, the needs have grown, isolation has grown, anxiety and depression have grown. And history, both spiritual and scientific, show that strong, healthy churches contribute to stronger, healthy communities. And that work, a lot of it's unseen. You're not going to see it with cars that come in and out of a driveway. It's going to be a lot through prayer and personal visits. We're coming to Chehalem Drive not to disrupt it, but coming to invest in it, to pray for the families, to point people to Jesus, to instruct in the word, to be there for the hurting, to walk with people as they go through seasons of grief or addiction problems or marriage struggles and loss. The fruit we're investing in will bring healthier homes and steadier lives. If granted this opportunity, we intend to prove not just through words, but through our lives and through our service that we're coming not to impose ourselves on the neighborhood, but to strengthen and bless that neighborhood. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any last thoughts, Andrew?
I think that closes our presentation. So
Okay.
thank you for listening.
I have a couple questions. if
Yep,
that's
go
all
ahead.
right.
Yep.
I, in my early, late teens, early 20s, went to a church that met in a school. And for a lot of years, I hauled the trailer of chairs and Sunday school stuff and set it up. And, it's a lot of work and I know what you guys are doing. And at that time I wanted to be a pastor. And one of the things that I learned in that time is when the Bible repeats itself several times, it's important. And I've heard several times today about the hours of operations. And so are we putting the hours of operations, or are you guys committing to just that Sunday morning and Wednesday night? Because I know that when eventually we did get a church building, we got creative in how to use that building. And now I don't think that we're here to make decisions on what you can legally do, and church are within that bounds, it seems like so far. But I sympathize with some of your neighbors and just want to know that that is really part of a commitment that you're making, or just a plan that you have for now. Does that change over, your youth group grows and you want to meet?
Our plan is to maintain being a simple church. And that means making it simple for our members, making as less impact as we can. The needs of any community change from time to time.
Sure.
And it's hard. I mean,
that's easy to do when you've never had a home,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so now that you are going to have a home, those priorities can change,
having
right? So
said that, knowing our history personally as a pastor, I've worked in churches that work every night like that. That is not
it's exhausting.
It is
I burnt out myself.
for the staff. It's exhausting for the members. It's not a way to maintain spiritual health. So I do not want to exhaust the neighborhood or my flock.
Let me chime in. I think the best way to deal with that would, is to add a condition of approval with hours of where we anticipate where services are. And if we decide in the future we need to
Andrew, sorry to interrupt. I can't hear you.
Okay. I think we should set some conditions of approval.
I would.
And then come back, hold on one second. We could come back and expand later, but I think it would be good to have some amount of goalpost put on that. So
in the same spirit of the driveway debate, are we going to pave it? We would love to pave it. We have to see where we are.
Your financial.
What our finance, we have to see. I mean, long-term, it would be golden. We would love that.
Yeah.
But we have to.
And I don't think that
in the same spirit, it's hard for me to come in a proceeding like this and make a commitment.
I'm not worried about the paving. I don't think was really the issue there. I do have a question on that part, but really more of the people being present, right? And I think that
Mhm.
that's where the concerns of the neighbors are, or at least what I've heard. One of the questions that I have about the road being oiled twice a year, are you going to oil your driveway too?
Yeah, that was part of it.
Okay, that's part of it. Thanks for the clarification. But I think really that, and I agree with your attorney here, is, you know, maybe set up some goalposts for now, and maybe room for a little bit more outside of just the Sunday morning and Wednesday evening, but really just a commitment here, and working with your neighbors to expand that further is something that I would be concerned about if I was living next to you. And I don't know if you guys agree with that or not, but I'm only one commissioner, not, we're a board of 3.
Next time we have one.
Yes, yeah, we'll do.
And they have to have it on a hearing.
Yeah, it'd be just the same thing we're doing now.
So we're going, we'll be spending thousands of dollars.
Yeah, I think
Do
it's really-
we want to take a break or?
No,
Okay.
we're not going to take a break.
No, I think that's something more for deliberation.
Andrew, do you want to extend this out so you guys can talk about some few things, or do you want to finish this up?
I'd like to, well, I think we
We
need
were
a
very
powwow.
close to agreed.
Could we just take 5 minutes? Would that be okay? A recess?
We usually.
Yeah, but we're not in that process is the problem. So you guys need to finish up, or we need to extend this. Otherwise, Jody needs to chime in on process here for us, please.
Are we at the point of staff recommendation?
We are. They're still debating on whether they're in agreement with what Commissioner King just brought up of see if they would like to put on the record of limiting the hours of operation.
My recommendation is to leave the record open. And 7.
It's being requested now to be left the record open. Okay, so
Okay.
thank you, Jody.
Okay, we'll just do that and we'll come back with a thought on that. I guess we weren't really prepared to address that.
Didn't see that.
Okay,
All right.
that's all we have.
Thank you.
And help me out, Jody. I'm going to close the public hearing, or am I going to leave the record open till?
I assume it's gonna be a 777? I'm looking at Lance.
Yes, that's right. I will read, let me write these dates down and then I can read out a potential motion.
Okay.
And if the board agrees, then they can say so moved.
Thank you. Stay tuned. The record's going to stay open, so there'll be a process for it.
Okay, did you decide to leave the record open? I guess we're prepared to go with the Wednesday and Sunday hours right now, if that means we can close the record.
It's already been requested to leave it open.
If
Unless she wants.
wanted it, we agree to Wednesday and Sunday. Is there anything else to talk about? It's not relevant if we're agreeing with conditions, so. Okay, all right.
Okay, I think that's probably best. If you guys are already in agreement before we came, I feel like you guys can just take another 2 weeks and get this really ironed out, and I think everybody will be amicable in the end.
All right.
Lance.
The open record motion, if the board agrees, can say so moved. The record shall be open to 5 p.m. on February 26th for all parties to submit written testimony or evidence to the planning department located at 400 Northeast Baker Street, McMinnville. The record shall then be open until 5 p.m. on March 5th for all parties to submit to the planning department written rebuttal to what was submitted during the first open record period. The record shall then be open for the applicant only to submit final written argument with no new evidence until 5 p.m. on March 12th. At that point, the record shall be closed. The Board of Commissioners shall then reopen the hearing at 10 a.m. on March 19th in room 32 of the Yamhill County Courthouse at the point of staff recommendation.
Perfect. So moved. Any further discussion on that?
None.
None? All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes. Thank you very much for everybody coming. We'll see you in 3 weeks. Four weeks, March 9th, 19th. Yep.
Correct. Correct, March 19th, yeah.
Yep. Sorry about that. March 19th. Okay. Just so you guys know, as you exit, we do still have regular meeting going. If so, you can keep it down. That'd be great.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct.
Get organized here. Okay. We are now on to item K, which is announcements. And let's give it just a few more minutes for people to funnel out. Ma'am. Ma'am. Ma'am, we do still have a meeting going on. Thank you. Commissioner King.
Recovery Advocacy Day was this last week at the state capitol. Over 1,000 people were there in support of treatment coverage expanding, not defunding, as is implied in budget conversations and OHA. I specifically support Recovery High Schools expanding, and if you haven't toured the Discovery Academy down there in Salem, I'd love to connect with you guys with Max down there. Had a great conversation with Jerry, our veteran service guy, just around services we offer. He went to one of his meetings up in Newburgh a couple weeks ago and just wanted to touch base with him. It was really great. I think he's a great asset to the community, to our veterans and just the county in general. Went to Sedcor Ag Breakfast, where they just gave a little bit of a state of ag and Marion, Polk, Yamhill County, and hazelnuts are up, wine is down, margins are still pretty high. Interest rates are, they really explained it as being a bit more normal, right? And I think we've experienced that. They might feel a little bit high, but just they're starting to settle, and that was taken well. But the margins are still pretty tight with inflations and tariffs and just some of those things that really affect some of the markets there. Lunar New Year Festival here in McMinnville, which was really great to attend. This is my second year. It's really fun. They have dragon dancers and great food, and it's the performance that gets put on is it's pretty amazing actually, and it goes for a while. It's super fun to watch. If you guys get a chance to go next year, I would highly recommend it. Met with Lutheran Family Services around Safe Families, learned a little bit more about that program and just maybe potential ways that I can help support them. And yesterday as well, met with the sheriff and Brian Young and Karina and Gustavo, the senators' field reps, around our CIP project that we're hoping to expand, and really got a lot of wisdom from their parts on language that they would like to see from change from last year around title, and but it left very encouraged from how excited they are about that. I feel like maybe they just say that about all the projects, but just this chance of us being able to get it, and with some of those tweaks that their office likes to see, and to be able to get into that bill and to advocate for us pretty heavily. So hopefully we're working on with that with the sheriff this week, and get that submitted before the deadline. and listening to Parkway Committee this morning, but I'll let you touch on that since it was yours. Thank you.
All right. Commissioner Sterr?
Thank you, Chair. Health and Human Services, Mental Health and Disability, Developmental Disabilities as Advisory Committee met and looked at some of the critical incidents and some of the issues that our staff is facing. Very high acuity patients who have very severe behavioral health issues, and it is increasing with severity. And so I just want to call out the fact that we have an amazing team with enormous capacity for mental health services, which we are doing really with great benefit to the community. So I do want to call out that this is a very important work that's being done, and we really did take a deep dive into some of the critical incidents and the complaints. Also visited the TTRS Johnston House, which when we first looked at that house back in 2012, everybody was shaking their head thinking, this is definitely going to be one of those money pits. We're not going to be able to rehab, but the bathrooms are done. There's a bathtub in there for the first time for the littles. Met some of the new women that are in there that we've been able to get these moms in there. Those who have been stabilized, they come home with new babies and don't have anywhere to go. So they've been stabilized. They're in there with supports from HHS, Public Health, and Lutheran. So I want to call out Mickey Bernards for the supported housing and recovery services work that she does. And also for the women in recovery who go into those homes hoping to be reunited with their children, working with child welfare. A couple of things happening in Salem this past week, which were very concerning. Obviously, the Senate Judiciary is trying to ram through as much in this 35-day session as possible. They took on 15 bills in one single hearing. Public is definitely being bulldozed in some of these processes. House Bill 4145, which is basically a very onerous gun control bill. There was some drama there. We had a Representative Tui Tran tried to vote no on this to depart from the Democrat Party and their position on this. She was right in the middle of the vote. The Judiciary Chair, Jason Krupp, took her outside. It was a pretty contentious conversation out there. She came back in and changed her vote. So there is a complaint, an ethical complaint about that. But let's just hope that they are able to shut that bill down. Want to thank the Republican minority for actually pushing back on Senate Bill 1599, which is the gas tax bill that the majority party is pushing. And I want to thank them for standing up and denying a quorum. And I hope that they do that with other bills, because otherwise we're not going to see anything change in Salem. So appreciation for our Republican minority.
Thank you. Last Thursday was Lafayette City Council meeting. They're adding to their ordinances a process so that they can allow food carts. So that's going to be kind of fun to see going on in Lafayette. They got a presentation from McMinnville Superintendent on just kind of an update on where the McMinnville School District is. They had a budget audit that came back very clean, so they're super happy with that. There's a bit of discussion about the flagpole and the height of the flagpole and whether it would be able to be installed in the overhaul of Veterans Park in Lafayette. So they're going to look at the main hindrance seemed to be a cost of the flagpole and how tall some of the councilors wanted it. So it's going to be interesting to see how they progress with that and see if they can't get any fundraisers in there to get some extra money so they can get their 70 plus a half 6-inch flagpole. I think it has some competition to do with Newburgh's flagpole, but I think it'll be great to see in Veterans Park, and so it's going to be fun to watch them progress through that. Saturday, attended the VFW's Auxiliary Post 4015 for their Valentine's morning breakfast. It was fantastic, and it was a great turnout. That group is just newly stepped up, and they're there to support our veterans and their families. And just a huge thank you to all the members and volunteers that have stepped up to restart that program and to show their commitment for making the food and setting up tables and doing all that stuff for those groups, because it's very important for our community. If you guys want to reach out and help and volunteer, you can reach out to me or VFWauxiliary@gmail.com. And just a reminder, they do provide emergency assistance, outreach, scholarships, and support for veterans and their families in Yamhill County. This morning, we had Parkway Committee meeting. Went very well. Again, I keep repeating myself every time we have this, but I think it's important that we strike while the iron's hot. Yesterday, I signed an invitation for U.S. Department of Transportation, and other people that are on that will be representatives from the tribe, representatives from Newburgh, representatives from McMinnville, and different business groups from around the county. And basically, it's the official invite for U.S. Department of Transportation to come out and see progress of the Newburgh-Dundee bypass. So that is coming along quite rapidly, and I feel really good where we're at with the process. Merkley has another ask in from ODOT for an earmark for $5 million in funding for McDougal. So we got fingers crossed for that again. We're getting really close. I like the conversations that are happening with ODOT right now around the McDougal interchange, where the process was here about 6 months ago that we were going to try to see if we can pull funding from some ancillary projects that actually fit in with McDougal. But because of some timeframes, which I updated a few months ago, we're not going to be able to do that. But as other projects are wrapping up with ODOT in our region, there may be excess funding from those that they can pull from to actually get McDougal to the finish line. So it keeps looking better and better for McDougal. And I'll keep everybody updated on that. March 12th, just as a reminder, there will be partial disruptions on Phase 2A, which is 219 going through Newburgh, the Newburgh-Dundee bypass. They're putting in bridge beams, and they're going to close the road down from about 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. at night, and no longer than 20-minute delays with flaggers. If you're part of ODOT's notification program, it'll send you notifications when there'll be, it's not a closure, it's just delays, so they'll have flaggers there. And I see Kevin writing that down, so we'll try to post something on our Facebook for that. Don't forget tonight, if you're interested, is the Fair Board meeting, and I've also, because I don't have enough commitments already, I've signed up to be part of our CTE program for Dayton High School, and our first meeting is on the same time tonight. So that's all I have, and if there's anything else for the good of the order.
Just a real quick shout out. I want to say thank you to Newburgh City Manager Will Worthy. I brought to his attention a disabled veteran in Newburgh that I met at the breakfast, and he had an issue getting his scooter up and down a street over by Les Schwab. So put him in touch with Will Worthy, and he and his team were able to actually complete the curb so he can get up and down over by Sitka. And it was actually just amazing to see that teamwork over at Newburgh, and the constituent is very happy, and that is a way to thank him for his service.
Fantastic. Thanks, Will. Nice. All right. Anything else from anybody? All right. We're going to close it out at 12:03. Thank you all for hanging in there, you two left over.